So my name is Dr. Jama Musa Jama, and I'm the director of the Hargeysa Cultural Center, which is an institution I have that is a bit for Somali culture and for Somaliland identity and history, but also a research institution and knowledge production hub. And I'm happy to be here because of what we are talking about, if it's the future. The future we have to look in our eyes. And I am concerned as someone who worked in the global north for a long time and now have to deal issues with the global south, how we took a risk that we lost something so crucial for us as a global south-based scholars and failed to pass this to our new generation. And how we failed to sort out our problems because we relied on other solutions coming from outside rather than indigenous value that we had. And because of there is a culture that was a dominant, there was a civilization that was a dominant to our own culture and our identity and our indigenous knowledge, we failed to use our tools and we were forced to use tools that are coming from outside. And that's why we failed to sort out many problems. So in order to formulate that, allow me to go back a little bit the history, the recent history of our continent. Of course, I really commend the Somaliland Civil Servant Institute and its leadership for organizing such a high-profile gathering in an occasion where we are welcoming new students who are finishing their first step for education. I want to congratulate the students who finished their schooling today and their degree, and hope starting with their today finished postgraduate, but with the hope that they can continue and to produce the knowledge that we need to build our nations in the African context. I commend you because of you gave us an opportunity to talk about issues in a multidisciplinary way, because if I see the institutes that are here from Jukuga University or Ethiopian Civil Servant University or the Gimba Institute and the Civil Society Civil Servant Institute in Somaliland, we look in different aspects of one major problem, which is how we failed to build and how we have to recover from that failure to build an institution, so institution building concept in our African context, in our governance way. So before I talk that major issue, which is for me fundamental, let me, as I was saying, go back to the natural and human-made tsunamis that happened in this society, and I mean in African society. Of course, what are tsunamis? The natural tsunamis usually cause a colossal damage of destruction for both human lives and material property. The process of reconstruction takes great efforts, financial, and a long period to recover from the tremendous loss suffered. So in the same case, in my opinion, with certain social events that happened in our continent in Africa, caused by the human beings themselves, whereby the magnitude of the destruction is similarly enormous, and the process of recovery becomes equally formidable. So the historical events that I consider tsunami at the same level that tsunami, the physical, natural tsunami happiness, include those 5 tsunamis that I mentioned. So please bear with me. The historical events with the magnitude similar to the tsunami that affected the wider African society started with the slavery. I think there is no doubt about that. Most horrific disaster, the modern world has yet adequately deal with its grave impact, but also have to think making reparation of those countries and those societies that suffered in the slavery period. So for me, the first tsunami is that. The second tsunami for Africa was colonialism, a mechanism that impoverished entire societies, in terms of resources, destroyed their systems of governance, of knowledge production, denigrated their art, their culture, and their indigenous languages and way of governance, and finally created the sort of senseless and harmful borders and frontiers that within among us and that's still creating problems as of today, after almost half a century that we passed. The first tsunami was the post-colonial. The post-colonial injustice perpetrated by neo-colonialism and that done by the superpowers and still continue to perpetuate the impoverishment of the African countries by aiding and abetting the cruel sort of dictatorial regimes that oppressed the human rights, among the other things. And this is something that's linked to why we are here today. For me, the cultural hegemony practiced by the Western developed countries in the so-called the third world, including Africa, can also theme a cultural imperialism. Their sole aim is to maintain the exploitative system under different guises and sustain the unequal relation between the developed societies and the developing world. This cultural hegemony, for me, can be cited as the fourth tsunami. And this is linked to the reason why I am considering that we are recovering from this gathering that we have here today. Of course, the final tsunami can be climate change, but can be also the terrorism or counter-terrorism that is still creating another form of terrorism. But I want to stop on that fourth tsunami, which is the cultural hegemony that happened. Let me say and connect with the tsunamis, the reason why we are here. The institutional building is a painful aspect of our modern state building in our continent. It's an African problem, and certainly it needs an African problem. It is it's an African problem, and certainly it needs an African solution. This microphone is creating me some problem. It's a global South problem, and it certainly needs a global South collective solution. We failed to build institutions in our continent for a long time because we tried to build with an external tools, ideas, and philosophies that do not belong to us, and we inherited and partly replicated concepts that are alien to our culture and our identities. And this is what I see different here. Africans who are coming together, working together, learning from each other, supporting from each other, and understanding the problems, the common problems that we have when it comes to the state building, when it comes to the institutional building. Until recently, and let me go to the conclusion, until recently, there was a sort of a guy, white, from Western country, mainly in the middle age, maybe, of course, younger than me, who could say, I have the methodology, better than you because I have major universities in my country. I have the money. I have the expertise. I know your problem. And I have also the solution, so take it like a medicine. And that doesn't work. A ready-made solution from outside cannot sort out our own problems. So we need people like you who are working for the people, by the people, knowledge produced in our own way to sort out our own problems. And that's what difference I see today in this gathering. And that's why I prize that the Civil Society Institute has amazing work to bring you here and to find this collaboration between institutions who are dealing with the same problem, but who are speaking with the same language because we have same problems and learning to each other. We need a knowledge produced by our people for our people, and we'll take the lead. And that's what I see important today in this gathering. That's why I commend this gathering, African scholars and policymakers who are coming together, sitting together, and finding a solution for the future generation. And that's why I target the word of future for the people who are here today, graduation from the past graduate. Therefore, we need to speak out as academic society and voice where sometimes governments have no room to do so. Institutions like this gathering, and in particularly the partnership between GIMBA and CSI, is something that I so appreciated because of, yes, it is started with a project funded by the World Bank or something like that. That project ended, but today they are still working together because of they believe that they can support each other and do something without that project, but continue working for the future. And that's the nutshell of my talk. We have institutions who have to face the same issues, but who are supporting each other to come up, learn from each other, and work for the future of this continent because of they have the same issue, which is fundamental for institutional building in the society. Allow me to touch as a final word why we need, and this is a message for the new graduates of postgraduate students. It's about the time our university, since we have also here the Minister of Education representative, the Deputy Minister, it's about the time that our university goes beyond teaching classes and create an inducing environment for knowledge production. That's the only way that we can survive. It's about the time such a knowledge produced is disseminated through international gatherings and continental collaboration like this one, and it's about the time our policy and decision makers consider the knowledge produced by our academics and base their decisions on evidence and the research output that come out of that original research, which is based on our indigenous way of doing things. I'm happy that many centers of excellence are coming within our society, in particular within Somaliland, and we are in one today. We have also higher institutions that are starting to do research, including Somaliland Center for African Studies, the Institute for Peace Studies at the University of Hargeysa, the old and renewed Academy for Peace and Development, which are today doing a great work here in Hargeysa, and many other think tanks. But most importantly, our core and anchor institution like the CSI are taking the lead in this position. So I'm really proud of this institution and the way that we are taking. It's about the time that the Somaliland government and other governments allocate funds for the research and support these institutions to produce knowledge whose output has a substantial impact to our society. And I think the word impact makes sense in this gathering because of if we fail on that and the definition of impact, we will not be going anywhere. We will be replicating like the papka, or I don't know how to say, parrot, of what someone else said, and that will not be effective on our societies. Now, I mentioned the funds, but the money is not the only missing. I know that I have to finish. When we get the right information, we can propose to give the right suggestions. There is an elephant in the room. To get the information and give back the right suggestions, the research community in Somaliland, in a wider continental Africa, and academia needs an accurate data. Who owns our data? I think this is a question that we have to ask ourselves. Who owns our data? Probably in the computers of some NGOs or international organizations that collected data. Somaliland government and a wider continental Africa needs a new paradigm shift to govern and streamline its own data. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because I feel that one of the things that the partnership between the institutions sitting here and our CSI could be in a next level of gathering reliable data coming and that on which we can base our research in order to have the real impact that we are looking for. In conclusion, this is a very important date for Somaliland, really. I want to one more time congratulate the students who finished their postgraduate, and as Abdurrahman said, you are the restarting point. You are not at the end point of your career. So you will be restarting. But on your shoulders, you are taking the responsibility of all what I have said. You are the people who we are looking for to work in your past, using your indigenous knowledge and way of knowledge production to take us and to lead us to the future. And this is a fundamental. And this is on to you. And one more time, I congratulate you. And I hope to see, as it has been said just now, the effects of this institution on the government and civil servant activities in Somaliland to see on a wider impact on the society that we have. One more time, thank you so much for coming.